Mr. Lindsley, who developed this chart?
I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is the name right there, Alan Lindsley.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here. Because of this little name, lead me to the path to discover you. So can you talk a little bit about this chart, like in 3 to 4 minutes? Just describe the whole process.
Yeah, so when you're working with your clients, and when I did this, I wanted to make it so you could walk somebody up to the chart and help them understand. So the first thing you have to help them understand is that every cell makes energy. Every cell makes energy exactly the same way, but different cells need more energy. So the first thing you tell them is that, hey, what you put in your mouth, fat, carbs, and protein, your food, becomes the same exact chemical in the citric acid cycle, the Krebs cycle, and then we convert that down, we keep breaking it apart, and we make ATP out of it. And a person will make their body weight in ATP every day. And that's important because we make gallons of water in our mitochondria every day also. People forget that. But that water never leaves the mitochondria. It's there and it stays and gets recycled in the mitochondria. So what you want to make sure, we have our testing stuff, but where do we get stuck? What blocks this process of us making energy? Statin drugs block CoQ10. Yep. Lactic acid, if you have lack of oxygen or lack of a nutrient, you can't get down the path. We'll talk about that in a second. Heavy metals act as direct poisons, chemical toxins, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, mycotoxins from mold. All these things poison the enzymes. They paralyze the enzymes so you can't get to that next step. So if you go to the Krebs cycle, so here it is. The body is a flex fuel vehicle. We can use sugars, we can use proteins and fats. Now the body primarily wants to use sugar and fat for its fuel source.
Yes.
You can use protein, but not the primary thing. Protein is much, much more for building the body and repairing the body.
The structure.
So yes, so we regenerate about 12 ounces of our body every day.
12 ounces, okay.
Yeah, on the average human being, 12 ounces get recycled. So the problem with a lot of people, if you watch as they age, the muscle disappears off of them. They need to double the protein as we age, especially over 40, because the testosterone goes down, growth hormone goes down. And so at 60, you can build the same muscle as you did at 16 with double the protein in your body. Now, human beings are not protein upregulators. So if I take a cow, I put the cow on a pasture, on a fresh green pasture, beef cow, they get all kinds of muscle, don't they?
Yeah.
So they can double the protein there. They eat that and it goes to the stomachs and they make protein out of the grass. Put a human being on grass.
You're gonna shit everywhere.
Is it gonna work? So that's a protein upregulator. They can almost double the protein. So that's why we eat a cow. So in this part of the country, we can't have avocado trees or banana trees, but we can have cows. And so that's a good thing for us to be able to have as a protein source. And so there's fat and protein there. So the sugars come into the plant, a little bit of amino acids and a little bit of fats. And the cow picks it up and eats it, and that's where the omega-3s used to come from. So the whole idea is that the sun creates the sugars, small amount of protein, and a little bit of fat in the plant. And then, of course, we take that and put it into an animal or into ourselves. And so it's about 22 steps. You can change around from glucose, and you can see the proteins come in somewhere in here, and the fats plug in right here. So they all plug in a different spot. But if you're taking a molecule of glucose to make energy out of it, it is about 22 steps. So that's 22 different enzymes that have to work. And every enzyme needs a vitamin and a mineral, a cofactor and a coenzyme. So if we're deficient, we can't get to the next step sometimes. So for example, here, if you're low in B3, NAD, niacin, niacinamide, or B1 or B2 or magnesium, these are all the things that make the enzyme run faster. And so when I made the chart, I made everything in red show like a block.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if it is how it is in Canada, but green means go and red means no, stop.
Yes, absolutely.
So red things, heavy metals, molds, fungus, toxins, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, mycotoxins, they stop the body from getting that next step. It paralyzes the enzyme, so you cannot get here. So what we do is you make lactic acid instead. You'll come down here.
You're in deep shit.
Yeah. So sometimes it's oxygen, sometimes it's nutrients, sometimes it's a vitamin or a mineral. So we want to build up. So this is the, think of this as the outside of the cell right here. The outside of the cell.
Yeah.
Now we're inside the cell, and we bring the amino acid in, we bring the glucose in, and we bring the fat in, and then we plug it in, and then we keep taking it apart, taking it apart, taking it apart. And what we're really doing in the end, through all these steps, we're just taking that molecule apart and grabbing the hydrogens and the electrons from it. Mm-hmm. So just like with, I'll back up for a second, I'm going to show this to you. So with your clients, you say this to them: we use copper wiring in the walls. Copper wiring in the walls gets a great conductor. And all we're doing is moving electrons, right?
Yes.
The bigger the copper wire, the more electrons I can move, the more power. So guess what I have here? I have an electron transport chain here. The more electrons I can move and clear out down that wire, the more power I can make. But I have to safely get these electrons out of the way so I can make ATP with these hydrogens I'm pulling out of the food, right? So again, in this number 4, that's where the copper sits. And when the glyphosate comes in the body, it steals the copper out of complex 4. I have to hand off 4 electrons. So just like with copper in the wall is a great conductor.
Yep.
The cells also use copper. So on average, like Morley says, we have about 32 million copper atoms per cell, about 40,000 copper atoms per mitochondria. 40,000 copper atoms per mitochondria. So you take 800 mitochondria roughly in a muscle, that's your 32 million per cell. Heart cells have 3,000 to 5,000 mitochondria. So now you're multiplying that number by 5 or 6. So now you're going to have 150, 160 million copper atoms per heart cell. And then you go to the brain and you have a million neurons, a million mitochondria per neuron. That times, you start to, it's into the billions, right?
Yeah.
So what we're seeing today is more MS, more ALS, more Parkinson's, more memory loss, because I believe part of that is the copper loss, localized copper deficiency. Copper myelinates the nerves in the brain. It runs the electron transport chain, and it cross-links all the collagen fibers. So without those 3 things there, as the brain starts to lose energy, you will show me your weakest genetic link.
Yep.
And if your family tends to have a genetic propensity towards Parkinson's, that's how you go. If it's memory loss, my dad with Lyme in his brain at 57 died 100 feet from where we stand right here because I watched him not be able to even fix his equipment anymore. The most basic thing in the farm, he was having middle to severe dementia in his 50s. And that's why they're getting ready to sell the farm, but that's how the farm accident happened. He couldn't even process how to jack up equipment, and he got killed one morning. So that being said, I'm 56 in a couple months.
Yep.
He was 1 year older than me, when he passed. So not old as, when you're 30, 57 seems old, but now when I'm almost 57, it seems pretty young,
yep.
right? So the whole idea is you have to do 2 things down here. You have to, the electrons are almost like a second exhaust pipe. We have to exhaust these electrons away into water. And when we don't have enough copper in the electron transport chain that's been locked up or pulled away by the glyphosate, what happens is I maybe only hand off 3 or 2 or 1 electron at a time. So I'll make superoxide, peroxide, or hydroxy radicals in my cells, which devastates the mitochondria, just completely breaks the mitochondria down. So when you start getting the copper back in orally or with the cream coming 2 different directions, now we can actually make enough energy to complete the circuit and make a full repair. Because what we see in these young athletes today is that they go out and go to practice and they wear, and because the copper's lost there, they don't have the energy to repair. So they wear, micro tear, don't repair, wear, micro tear, don't repair, and then it's a catastrophic ACL, labrum, meniscus, Achilles tendon,
yep.
and then they're saying, well, these kids are working so hard. And I tell people, kids, athletes in general, when I grew up on this dairy farm we're standing on right now, we would do 8 or 10 hours of physical labor, stacking hay bales, cleaning out calf pens, picking rock, and then they go, oh, time for football practice. Then you run to town and do your 2 hours of practice and lift your weights and come back home and then finish your day. So we were physical all day long, every day. We weren't on our cell phones. My joke is, Nicholas, that if kids are working so hardly, their thumbs would be shot from doing this. That would be the not their knee joint. But remember now, when we talked about this before, is when you start having powerful movements, with collagen now we switch to this electron. So what helps it? So red light helps it. Sunlight helps it.
Yep.
We can jump right into complex 3 right here. And so it shows the cell, shows the mitochondria dropping into complex 3. So you can, red light you don't have to do this top half. It gives energy to the cell, so you can quickly actually make photons to electrons, make energy down here. And that's where red light is good for us. People feel good in sunlight.
Absolutely.
Much better than dark, And the difference between winter, now you're in Canada, maybe, are you north of me? Not too much?
Yeah, I'm north.
So you've heard the winter blues,
Yes,
right?
for sure.
What is the winter blue? The winter blues is that when the sun goes south, we get primarily blue light for the wintertime for about 6 months. The purple spectrum is lost about March 21st, where I am here, until September 21st, we get full spectrum light. So I feel good.
Yes.
And I don't sleep as much, and I get a lot more done, and I'm running around 9 o'clock at night now, and it's dark here now, so we have blue light from our phones, we have blue light from the lights, computers, TVs, and the light in the air, so that's the winter blue, and it's very depressive to the brain after a while. So when we finally get the purple light back in the spring, summer, and part of the fall, we feel very vital again.
Absolutely.
That's the difference right there. So when we lose that light, there's a lot of depression that takes place there. So, yeah. So that's the electron transport chain. We have to be able to take the food, break it apart, and we go through the Krebs cycle. Now, an interesting thing, there's something out there called reverse Krebs cycle.
Oh, what is that?
Reverse Krebs cycle is where the Krebs cycle spins backwards.
Why is it doing that?
Well, there's different theories about that, but all cancer cells spin backwards.
Oh, shit.
Nick Lane I believe he's from Oxford. If you go online and watch his YouTube videos, he talks about how they now know when they evaluate cancer cells under the microscope and they look at what they're making, they're spinning backwards. So instead of using oxygen in the cell, they don't kick off. So if we go clockwise, we actually release carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
But when we spin backwards, we actually need carbon dioxide. So cancer cells don't use oxygen, they use carbon dioxide. So Hammer from Germany, back in the 70s, found that he was an oncologist in a German hospital over there in Germany. I believe it's Hammer or Hummel. He figured out that, not this, because he didn't have the chemistry back then, that he felt like there was a huge emotional component, that a trauma, physical or mental trauma to the body before cancer showed up.
Mm-hmm.
So when he would find that, he would actually work with people emotionally, and he could get over 90% of the cancers to go away by helping the emotions. So we think there's a huge component to the emotion part, and I've got a technique that kind of works on this. I didn't show it to you today, but when you see the Krebs cycle spinning backwards, they have a low ADP there. But you also will find the emotion, because our memory is mostly stored in the brain, but I can be heartbroken, I can't stomach something, I'm grieving something, this person's a pain in my neck. The actual emotion is attached quite often to the cells in our body and on organs.
Okay.
So that's Chinese medicine says that each organ will contain up to maybe 6 or 8 different emotions that can be held there. And that's very, very true. Liver's about frustration, resentment, anger, gallbladders, same way. But you hear people say this, I can't stomach this anymore. I can't take this anymore. My heart feels broken after I lost my best friend. That's real. But we want to be able to help a person release the emotion, so what they have left is the experience. And as human beings, we get caught in the emotion sometimes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so then the Krebs cycle begins to spin backwards, and then I get breast cancer, or prostate cancer, or liver cancer. And that's where a lot of cancers are coming from. There's definitely an emotional component to it.
Can we finally talk a little bit about deuterium?
Yeah, so what we found with, when I was studying deuterium 5-6 years ago, what I found was that, and this is true, sugar-based products seem to have more deuterium in it, and there's D1 and D2. So when you add a second electron to the hydrogens, then it becomes H2, and it doubles the mass of it. But if you look down the chart down here, when I drew the chart up, I wanted to show a normal hydrogen was H. But when you have deuterium slipping through, it's also hydrogen, and the body doesn't seem to be able to get it completely out. You can also pull the deuterium in. There's tritium too, and this would be deuterium here. And what I tried to show in the chart here is that you try to pull these back through. The deuterium is too big to get through the synthase enzyme here, this turbine.
Yep.
So it tends to break this, and that could be called complex 5, right? So the deuterium molecule causes basically damage to the nanomotor right here.
Yes.
But when we have normal hydrogens coming through, it makes ATP. It doesn't damage the nanomotor. So the higher deuterium foods we eat tend to cause more damage to the nanomotors. And that also can be a process of, it's different spots, not causing the Krebs cycle to spin backwards, but definitely causing a lack of ATP performance in the cell. So that was a big thing. So the mito ATP was an idea I brought out, and there was a product out there, mito ATP. So then that's how the product got developed. I said I need to help find something, because they were doing all this water, low deuterium water, so it would basically bind up the deuterium and do stuff like that. But this mito ATP product was amazing. It would bind the deuterium up. And it was incredible, but there were some problems with getting the people who developed it on board, and so it's no longer, came down to money, basically.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, unfortunate.
Thanks for this explanation.
Yeah.